Good evening, everybody. Want to call the roll and note that all of our board members are present tonight. With that, we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, 8 ayes and 1 abstention. And with that, we're going to move on to our education report.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine, and we're going to start this evening with an update on our high school renovation project by Mr. Jim Hanna.
Hello, everyone. This is my third time in front of you, and I'll give you an update of how we're progressing. Of course, here's our phasing plan. As I reported to you, As I reported to you earlier, this phase is completed. That's the trainer's room and Mike's office and some of the maintenance department. This is the next phase to turn over, which is the art rooms, the engineering lab, and that's on progress. We should be pretty well completed this week. Construction's continuing on the gym, as you can see when you drive by, the steel, and I got some photos in the presentation for you. And we have work going in this area, which is the athletic department. So, moving on, here's the gym. The steel is erected. There's some interior footings going to be going in tomorrow, some CMU block works occurring. You're going to see some fireproofing starting very shortly, and the exterior walls are going to start to raise. The engineering lab, you can see in the engineering lab, the dust collector's in, the air cleaners are in, the dust collector was started and worked today, so that's getting ready for move-in. This is the 400 corridor coming out where the students are passing by the art rooms and the engineering lab. You can see this is pretty much the condition of the corridor every day. The contractor's been really good in his corridor, keeping it clean, keeping it clear. Those are display cases going in as today and yesterday. And here are the art rooms. There's the casework being installed. The floors are getting ready to be installed this week. Some more trim work going on in that area. The kiln room, which has a quarry tile floor. We expect the kiln to be in there pretty much this week and start it up. Phase 2A, which is the athletic area, the toilet room's in there. You can see the rough-in was done. They started building the CMU walls in that area. Looking on the outside, this is the west driveway where the cafeteria addition's going. We did the bypass of the fire line just at the beginning of the month. That went fairly well. Most of this storm and sanitary has been relocated, which gives us room to start putting the foundations in for the cafeteria, which has started. You can see this is the new water meter pit, which we're going to have to do a shutdown, and we're planning to do that over Christmas. So the domestic water line is going to have to be shut down. We're going to have to bypass the water line through this new meter pit, sanitize it, and have it ready for when everybody comes back after Christmas. You can see some of the water line relocation, a lot of rock in that area, so it kind of held up the progress, digging through that rock. And here you can see the contractors are preparing the reinforcing for the footers of the cafeteria. So that's pretty much for this month. Look forward to seeing you next month, where we'll probably have a lot more progress. Anybody have any questions? We're on schedule. So far.
I was hoping that you would just
We're on schedule.
answer before I had asked.
Just a quick question about, because I don't have my time limit in front of me, the gym. When do you anticipate that being finished?
That is next August.
Okay.
Yeah, next summer
In
is
time
going to be
for-
a very busy summer. We'll
in
be
time for
finishing up
next
the
school year.
cafeteria, we'll be finishing up the gym, and there's going to be a lot of work going on through the entire building. So we all are starting to plan for that right now.
So you anticipate the gym and the cafeteria both being ready for beginning of
That's the
school
timeline.
year?
Yes,
Okay, and we're working the
that's the
timeline.
timeline. Yes, yes. As I understand, Ms. Viola already has something planned for the gym, so we better have it done.
Very nice, thank you.
Thank you. We also have, we wanted to give you an update on our DIAL, our Digital Learning Environment Initiative. I'm pleased to say that last evening we had our first parent meeting, and we had over 160 parents, middle school and high school. We packed the high school cafeteria. Every seat basically was taken, except the front row. They didn't want to get too close. But it was a very nice event. We're making some modifications to our presentation to try to enhance it a little bit more based on some feedback, but we got very positive feedback from parents that evening. And what I've asked Michael to do this evening for you is just show you on our website where we've updated some things and where we're putting pertinent pieces of information so that if you're asked by a member of the public, a parent, you can point them in the right direction. And tomorrow, we'll also point this out carefully as well. But there'll be parents that aren't able to attend, so I'd like him to just show that tonight, and that way, if somebody watches the video of this meeting, they can also get the information.
If you don't mind, I will project, but if I can do that from here, I can show you the website. There are links on both the middle and the high school page and the district home page. It takes you directly here. It's also accessible through the technology department page, but I suspect that most parents will access it from one of our school landing pages or our district home page. Some of this has been here for a while, but we've done a lot of work on the site in the last few weeks to get ready for the parent meetings. The landing page here for the DIAL initiative, again, this has been here for quite a while. It really looks at our overall strategic goals, and it takes the parents essentially through the presentations that I provided the board in January and then later in May. And there's a very nice embedded movie here that we've used, if I may, we used it on Friday with superintendents from around the county. We had teachers come in and demonstrate how they're using the various tools on the iPad and laptop computer as we've been getting teachers ready for this transition. And I think the superintendents were very, very impressed with our teachers. Our teachers, we asked them to come in, sort of stand and deliver. They did more than stand and deliver. They did demonstrations. We had iPads in the hands of the superintendents. It was really a very good morning. But this was a 7-minute video. I'm not going to show it here, but we liked it so much. It was we need to credit Lori Ellis yet again for her work. But it really combined some of our last year's tech fair along with the professional development work that we've been doing with teachers, put it in a nice sort of collage of video and snippets. And so I thought this was really worthwhile, so I embedded it right on that landing page. But getting down to some of the things that I think parents really want and need to know about right now, we have all of the relevant forms, the policies that provide the guidelines, the framework for the one-to-one, and all of the information that's also in hard copy that I think Ms. Fiola has passed out. And some additional information as well, documents that were probably too large and not really practical to put in hard copy form. So this is all in one location, but the key materials that parents needed between now and our planned distribution, they were also delivered in hard copy yesterday. We put together frequently asked questions, at least the questions we thought would be frequently asked. And as we go through these parent meetings, we will add to the collection of frequently asked questions, both on the DIAL initiative overall, and then on both programs, the middle school iPad program and the laptop program at the high school. There's also information here on the insurance fees, and we've set up an online portal with the help of the business department, so that parents, and we actually had a few parents using it in the last few days, parents can pay for the insurance using the same system they use for food service. So there is a small convenience fee that goes directly to my school box. There is a preparation timeline which really shows all the work that we've done, going all the way back to 2007, 2008, up to the present. And of course, some of our mission, the whys of what we're doing, some information about some of the tools that we're providing teachers to evaluate and assess their units of study, and to thoughtfully integrate technology to augment, modify, and redefine the kinds of things they're doing with students in the classroom. And I think this is essentially the resource. And this resource will continue to grow. The frequently asked questions will continue to grow. We've embedded some key videos that again get really to the why we're doing this. So I am watching the traffic on this site, and not surprisingly, it has spiked this month. So I expect it will spike even more. If I may just provide a couple more updates for you. All the iPads are imaged and ready for distribution on the week of November 17th. We will be doing that by class, and we will be providing parents with phone call reminders the evening before we would be distributing to their student. Our laptop imaging is underway right now. We're making good progress. We plan on the week of December 15th to do the distribution again by class. We had a very good meeting yesterday morning with the student digital leadership team at the high school, and we're beginning to build out of that leadership team our tech team moving forward. We are also very excited that we'll be able to bring that new tech team down to the Genius Bar in King of Prussia, sort of a kickoff activity, and have the I guess the geniuses from the Genius Bar work with our students. Let's see. We are meeting with all of the classes at the high school, by grade level next week, and we'll be getting in to the social studies classes to talk with students in smaller groups. We will be making similar plans at the middle school in the next couple of days. And I think that's I think that's all I have at this point. And do you have any questions?
I just had a comment. I was at the meeting last night, the first parent meeting. I wanted to go to the...
I'm sorry.
No, it was, and actually, I wanted to go to the first one to just kind of gauge the reaction, because, as you know, any new initiative, you never know what's going to come out of that first meeting. And I was actually really impressed. I thought you guys seemed really well prepared. There were some questions. If there were questions asked that you weren't prepared to answer, you didn't look like you were ill-prepared to answer them. It seemed, it seemed like every question that was brought up by a parent, the preparation was done to answer them, a policy was in place, or a structure was ready to address all those concerns. And so I thought it went really well, and you and your team really were well prepared for this kickoff.
Thank you. As Ms. Fuel mentioned, and I appreciate that. We do know that there are some things that we can do to make the meeting more efficient, more effective, and so we've been talking about that off and on since last night. So, but I appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
I have actually two questions. First, love that you're using My School Bucks to make the payment. I personally find it very convenient. And let me say that I didn't make it to the meeting last night. I wasn't able to. I probably won't be able to go till, I think there's more meetings next week.
Well, thank you for that meeting. It's
Sure.
Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock in the high school. Thursday night at the middle school auditorium, followed by a presentation from the district attorney's office. Do you want to address that?
Well, yes, and that one starts at 6:30
starts at
because we have a
6:30.
7:30 meeting with the district attorney's office that are bringing in the presentation on cyberbullying, bullying from last year that we had a snow day and we were unable to have them. And then the 6th, and that meeting is at the
7
middle
o'clock.
school at 7 o'clock. So all the meetings are 7 except for Thursday night.
So I need to go to one of them because I have a child who's going to be getting a machine, but it'll probably be the 6th before I get there. So pardon me if you answered this last night. First, in regards to the My School Bucks and the convenience fee, if a parent is on an extremely tight budget and doesn't want to pay that convenience fee, is there an alternate way for them to pay?
Check would be another way.
So they could do that if
Oh,
they wanted
absolutely.
to.
In fact, we find probably most parents will be using that. We actually set up the credit card portal really as a secondary form of payment. If it becomes the primary form of payment, that's fine too. But yes, they can. All the forms can be turned in anytime from this point to the day of delivery. If they're turned in advance, that would be helpful. It would move the process along on distribution day. But if they are going to do that in advance, they can turn it right into school office. If a parent has a child in the middle school and high school, either school office, because it will be forwarded directly to central office, and we'll take it from there. But a check is fine.
And that leads me to the second question. Thank you for the segue, which is the forms. I'm guessing that with the short time we have between now and rollout, what I'm going to ask probably isn't feasible, but starting next year, these forms will probably be completed in the beginning of the year.
Over the summer, I hope.
So could these forms be integrated into the first day packet for those parents that like doing it online rather than having to print out multiple page forms and sign and fill out?
That is our plan.
Excellent. Thank you.
The only reason we couldn't do it this year is because of when we're starting.
Thank you, and thank you, Diane, for also attending last night and representing the board. And I also wanted to say that we've had 3 successful literacy nights at the elementary level, and the principals have reported, and I know Mr. Voorhees was highly involved in organizing this event, that we've had probably the best attendance that we've ever seen. It was the very nice events for parents, and what we are doing for parents who are unable to attend is working through Mr. Voorhees' office, and they're putting together 5-minute snippets for parents on certain skills so that they can look and see how they could help their child at home with a particular skill. And so that'll start to be developed and put on our website very shortly. And then moving past literacy, we're into math starting November 5th, and we start over again with 3 math parent nights at our elementary level. So I encourage parents to take advantage of those.
Any questions or about anything? With that, we're going to move on to public comment, and our first one is Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Okay, so-
Doesn't it come to the mic?
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm here on behalf of the YMCA. My name is George E. Thornton Sr. I'm the site director for Lower Pottsgrove, Ringing Rocks, and West Pottsgrove. And with our partnership, the before and after school program, we want to find out how can we get access into the buildings as well as get name badges for my staff of 10. And that's pretty much the question. And then anything else that we can do to help continue with our program, anything that you may have seen that we need to be aware of. So we want to ask questions regarding that as well.
I'll give you a call if you want to leave me your phone number, and
Be more than
tomorrow
happy
I can follow up with the phone call.
Be more than happy to. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. And Mr. Leach?
Hi, my name is Albert Leach. I'm from Upper Pottsgrove, and I just wanted to make a little public comment that I wrote up real quick for you guys. Real short, though. I'll make sure it's short. On October 22nd, I sent the district and the school board an email asking a few questions and presenting a concern I have regarding the math curriculum recently adopted here in Pottsgrove. The concern was brought to me by another parent in our district asking when our district decided to drop 8th grade Algebra 1, and I explained that I remember the school board approving the board approving of a 1.5 credit Algebra 1 class offered in 9th grade, but didn't know they also approved the complete removal of Algebra 1 from 8th grade curriculum. I did explain that we have an accelerated math program in which our students, if qualified, can take Algebra 1 as early as 7th grade. The parent was upset because her daughter was told she did not qualify for the accelerated program, as the class is now being limited to only 10% of the student body per class. With my sister's children just beginning in our district, she asked me to find out about our math program. She explained to me that she would not want her daughter to get too far along in our district if she believed a future change in schooling might be needed. Therefore, I asked our mathematics chairperson in the middle school if she could provide me with the information to tell my sister. The middle school teacher stated that our district is indeed cutting back the accelerated program to a max of 10% based on a result of a test given at the end of 5th grade, amongst other things. Also, she confirmed that we currently don't have an 8th grade Algebra 1 class and suggested that our new Common Core 8th grade math course would include some Algebra 1 in the program. This explanation from the middle school teacher led to my email to the school board and superintendent, Ms. Shelley Fiola. I asked a few questions. I asked first, if the school board knowingly approved the new math curriculum path of not offering Algebra 1 to upward of 90% of our student body until 9th grade. Furthermore, I asked if this curriculum change is part of the scope needed to be approved by the school board. Second, I asked if upward of 90% of our student body were going to wait until 9th grade to take Algebra 1, how would they be able to get the prerequisites that take to college preparatory and AP classes needed to fully prepare themselves for college math after graduation? How will the district handle those students that just missed the cut for the accelerated program? And how will the district handle those students moving into the district during the middle school years? Third, with the Algebra 1 curriculum starting in 9th grade and the Math Accelerated program being cut to a maximum of 10% of the student class, how will the advanced classes have enough students to fill the classes for the juniors and seniors to take? As I stated, with approximately 24 students in the accelerated program per class, there will not be a large enough feeder program to properly set up the students to take the AP Statistics, AP Calculus AB, or the new class we created, the AP Calculus BC class, by the time they reach their future years. So my fear was that those classes would either have a very limited availability or become non-existent at all. And obviously that promoted the email that I received. And while I greatly appreciate the district taking the time to formally respond, I'm very, very appreciative of that, right? I was disappointed with the response. First, the email sent the email sent by the district to me from Ms. Fiola stated, if I can be further of assistance, I asked as a courtesy and in following the chain of command as well as our board complaint policy 906 under public complaint, you direct your questions/concerns to me and or the administrator responsible for the information so that I have the opportunity to answer your questions/concerns prior to sending them to the school board. I want to say that I do not believe my questions in the email should be considered as a complaint. Right? I was asking a question and presenting a concern to the school board and the school administrators. I have been told on many occasions that we as the taxpayers of our community should email our questions to the school board rather than using the social media. I did just as I was asked, and instead the response was I was considered a complaint. Second, the formal memo sent as a response doesn't fully answer my questions. The memo states that the school board on multiple occasions spoke at length about the math curriculum and the board approving all changes. However, in all forms that were supplied in the response email, you continue to state that 8th grade algebra will be offered in 8th grade. 8th grade will be offered Algebra 1. I didn't see anywhere stated that you were removing from Algebra 1 from 8th grade and moving it to to 9th grade only for any student not in the accelerated program, as was confirmed by me by your own math chairman in the middle school. The memo also spent about 3/4 of it explaining about my comment of the 90% of the students that will be behind, all right, if taking Algebra 1 in 9th grade. Well, first, you completely misunderstood my meaning of what I used when I said the word behind. However, not taking that into consideration, you offer that students in the middle school will continuously be monitored in their achievements in mathematics against established criteria to determine each student's readiness for advanced math classes. Therefore, if a student shows they now possess the ability for the advanced math classes, you imply the student will be placed into an advanced math class. So how are those students going to be able to be helped after 7th grade when they are being recommended for the advanced math class path, but there's no Algebra 1 in 8th grade? And quite frankly, I was also told that there would not be an 8th grade Algebra 1 in the future. The memo also states that a student may take multiple math courses in a year to fill the prerequisites needed to take those advanced level courses I asked about. Now, understand that despite the fact that it's a difficulty for a student to have to take an advanced math class in concurrence with the building math class, you're not going to have, and besides that, it has to fit in the student's schedule before all that can happen, you're still not going to have the AP Calculus BC program, which we're still creating, available to any student that starts 9th grade Algebra 1. It's virtually impossible for them. They have to take 2 a year. Right? Lastly, your memo states that the Pottsgrove follows a similar sequence that many surrounding districts have incorporated. You in particular mentioned Boyertown and Springford in that comment. Yes, absolutely correct. Most schools follow the same progression in math curriculum. However, in both schools that you suggested and even listed, they both start at least 1 year ahead for many more students than we're expecting to start with. As I stated earlier, I appreciate, and I do, I really do, appreciate the district taking the time to try to answer my email to the school board. I also want to state, though, I will continue to email my volunteered elected officials as questions arise that I feel deemed to be answered by the school board as asked by the school board sitting here today. Thank you very much for your time and your considerations tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. I was going to have Ms. Viola respond to your comment here at the answer to previous questions, but if you don't mind, if you could address some of the things that were stated.
First of all, I wanted to let you know that the reason that I asked you to contact or go directly to the administrators that are in directly responsible for the questions, concerns, complaints, whatever you want to, however you want to couch them, is because then they can give you the answers. The school board doesn't have that information per se, and we're just trying to answer your questions and be responsive to our community. So that's why I asked you to ask if you ask the right people, hopefully you'll get the right answer, and then if we're not able to answer you, then I would encourage you then to go to the school board. If we can't answer your questions, if we can't solve your problem, I was just saying that for us to be able to solve your problem or even understand it, it's better to have a conversation with the appropriate administrator. That being said, you know, your comments were quite lengthy, and I believe that some of the things that you stated in there, there's still some confusion with regard to how we're handling our math program. We're not saying that we're never going to have 8th grade algebra, but you have to understand that we're in the middle of a transition to the Common Core. And because of that transition, we essentially had all of the concepts and skills that students have to know and be able to do at a given grade level will push back a grade. So it's almost impossible to make up 2 grade levels worth of skills and concepts in a given year. We did put some steps in place in order to do that and to get the students where they need to be. But for this particular class, we didn't have a full class of 8th grade algebra to be able to offer those students because they weren't prepared. And in the past, we've, I would say, made the mistake many years ago of pushing students too fast into the algebra program. And what happened, and I think some of the board members actually have students at that time here and might be able to speak to it, they didn't have the requisite skills when they got to the high school, and then they struggled because of that. We're trying to proactively ensure that students have the requisite skills and they're ready the readiness level is there for them to be successful in the algebra program when they do in fact take the algebra, because if they're not, then what are the unintended consequences? They're not going to have the concepts and skills to take higher level math courses, and thus they'll struggle then, or they won't pass their Keystone, and then we'll have to put remediation in place for that. So, you know, there's a snowball effect here, and we're trying to do our due diligence to put things in place to ensure that our students are successful, because certainly we're here to serve students. So I'd be more than happy to sit down at a meeting with you, Mr. Leach, and try to answer your questions and have Mr. Voorhees there so we could go point by point through some of the things. I don't know that we can cover all of that in a board meeting this evening, but if you'd like to, you know, contact me tomorrow or tell me a time that I can reach you, I can set that meeting up, and I'd be happy to sit down with you.
I have just a couple of, I guess they're questions. I read through everything, read through your email and Mr. Voorhees' response, as well as the supporting material in detail. In fact, I read it a couple of times just to make sure that I fully understood it. I have to say that that I am empathetic to Al's point of view, in that his answers really weren't fully, his questions weren't really fully addressed. And some of one thing that really stuck out at me was the following sentence, and I don't mean to parse your grammar, Daniel, but it is true that there is not currently an 8th grade section for Algebra 1. However, the district does have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students currently taking Algebra 1. So I had to think through what exactly he meant by that, because it almost seems like he's saying, no, we don't do it, but then we do it. And then I realized, okay, what he's saying is Common Core includes some Algebra 1 as part of the core curriculum. I mean, these two sentences are somewhat contradictory, but, the other thing that bothered me was I read through all the materials. I was present at every board meeting where math curriculum was discussed, even before I was on the board, and they were referenced in the letter dating back to 2013. And the thing that concerns me, well, the couple of things that concerns me, is one, I distinctly remember a lot of talk about adding 3 levels or creating 3 levels of math. You know, the advanced one where the kids take algebra in 7th grade, a middle one where they take it in 8th grade, and then the rest that take it in 9th grade. And by eliminating the 8th grade, maybe if only temporarily, it's almost like we've eliminated that middle level. Or it seems as if that's what we're doing. To Al's point, then, some kids who are more advanced than the bulk of the students may be in the very situation that he's talking about when they get to 11th and 12th grade. I also think that doubling up is a very impractical thing for most math students. Schedule alone, let alone the complexity of having to learn 2 different math curriculum at the same time. And so, and then last, I don't remember the board being told that we were dropping 8th grade algebra or that we were limiting the number of people taking algebra in the middle school to 10% of the students. So maybe it seems to me like that is something that should be at least put before the curriculum committee.
I'd like Mr. Voorhees to respond, because I think some of that is false information, and I think he could probably shed some light on it for you.
So, good evening, everyone. There's a lot of questions on the table. I'll do my best to answer at least some of them. The first question, I think, as I hear it, and I apologize for the misunderstanding in the way it's written in the memo. There is not currently a section of grade 8 algebra. So what that means is there's not a full section of grade 8 students, a full class, if you will, of students in grade 8 taking algebra 1. However, we do currently have students in 6th grade who are taking algebra 1, in 7th grade who are taking algebra 1, and 8th grade who are taking algebra 1. In other words, algebra 1 is offered in 7th grade. Students from 8th grade and students from 6th grade are partaking in that because they showed readiness and they were prepared to take algebra 1. Okay?
still don't understand. Are they, you said they're taking it in 6th grade? So there's
It's a multi-grade classroom. The classroom has varying levels, grades of students mixed together.
Thank you.
But it's algebra.
Right.
Okay.
So that's an excellent question. Let me also clarify another point. The reason it was not offered this year in 8th grade algebra was very strategic, in fact. What we found what we needed to do with the way the standards were being backed up, if you will, and the way the content was now available, or 8th grade content could now very well be seen in 7th grade content or in a 7th grade classroom. Some of the things that we needed to do was map out what those courses look like. Specifically, what happens to Mr. Leach's point is for students who are accelerated or who have ability to be very accelerated at some point in time. So we did a number of things to prepare for that moving forward. So while it's not in place this year, what we did was put a 6-7 condensed math class into place that will be in place, that is in place actually. What is a 6-7 condensed math course? What it is it takes all the content from 6 math and grade 7 math, and now it prepares a student to take Algebra 1 in 7th grade. So as a 6th grader, I could be taking 6th grade math and 7th grade all together in one course, so that I'm now prepared, well prepared to take Algebra 1. What we've done now, because of that year break in time that we don't have Algebra 1 in 8th grade, we also developed a 7-8 condensed math course. So that 7-8 condensed math course very much serves the same purpose. It's to prepare students who are now ready, giving them all the content that they would have received over 2 years in a condensed format so that they are prepared to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade.
But we're very careful about what students we put in there, because the
Correct.
last thing we want to do is have students that aren't ready, and we're trying to shove this content and skills down their throat, and they're not ready. And then it sets them up for failure, which is another reason why we have the 1.5 algebra class in the high school for those students who will be ready at that time, and then they can get the algebra in a little bit longer time. Because if you read the research on this, I mean, students learn there's different variables. Time is a variable. Sometimes it takes longer for students to grasp the material. That we're trying to accommodate that variable. We don't want to just say we're just going to make a section of algebra just because we want to make a section of algebra. We want to make sure the students are ready. And students have had success taking more than one math course simultaneously at the high school in the past, so long as they've had those requisite skills underlying to support them in being successful in those more difficult courses.
We also have established criteria for each of those courses that I just described. There's established criteria which delineates, so we can then have conversations with students and parents about when students are ready to take Algebra 1.
Well, I just wanted to comment on your question about the 8th graders in the 7th grade. And actually my son, I mean, typically we don't talk about individual students, but because he's mine, he's one of those students who would not have been in the algebra class this year. He's in 8th grade this year. But working with his IEP, with the gifted teacher, with his counselor, they did the assessment. They said, you have the foundational skills. You'll be ready for this class. And so he actually is an 8th grader taking math in an algebra class with mostly 7th graders. So that's the nice thing about having a small school district, is that, you know, you can individualize, and the middle school counselors were really, really good about working with him and things like that. And it was even over the summer, and helping him understand what kind of foundational skills he needed to develop to be able to be successful in that. And if they thought that he wasn't ready for it, they would not have put him in that.
And I'm not suggesting that we put kids in a class that they're not ready for it. I sit here as a student who was pushed too early in math and turned off by it. So I 100% agree that you don't push kids who aren't ready, or you'll just lose them when it comes to the subject matter. But But at the same time, I was concerned, and hopefully you're going to tell me that it's incorrect, that we're arbitrarily setting 90% as a number for the kids that will be put into advanced algebra, whether it's as part of a separate 8th grade section or integrated into a single 7th grade, although you can only put so many kids into that one 7th grade section. So if more students test that they're ready, then they're going to take the class. It's right. We're not going to limit it to a percentage, correct?
To my knowledge, I'm not quite sure where those percentages came from. There is, to my knowledge, again, and not anything that came from me or Ms. Viola or Dr. Shirk, that anybody ever said we would be limiting to 10% the amount of students who could be following an accelerated math program. Really, what we do is do a case-by-case basis, a student-by-student basis, where we're looking at information, we're looking at the data that we have, we're looking at those criteria that we have established, and then having conversations and saying, does the student in fact show readiness to take Algebra 1? Those conversations occur almost as a student-by-student basis, not along a lines or with a criteria that it cannot exceed 10% of a class.
So we don't have any students this year that were ready to take algebra that aren't taking it.
Say your question again.
That was too
Mr.
negative,
Rubino.
sorry. All of the students who are ready to take algebra this year in the middle school are taking algebra.
To my knowledge, that would be correct.
Okay.
Now, understand, Mr. Rabinowitz, I wasn't sitting at the table in the middle school last year when those decisions were being made. But my understanding is they were looking at that criteria just as we have that criteria in place and making decisions based upon that.
And just to add to that, I know the middle school principal, Dr. Ramage and Dr. Ziegler were involved in the conversation with Mr. Voorhees to try to answer Mr. Leach's questions, and never did they bring up, oh, we have a cutoff or something like that. And we've never had that conversation or given him that directive to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good? Mr. Leach? Thank you. Okay, moving on to the report of the superintendent.
Trying to keep it short. Starting with professional staff. I recommend that you approve the professional staff items as submitted.
I want to make a motion, we approve all personnel.
A motion, a second. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
I recommend that you approve the payment of invoices listed for the middle school secure vestibule project as presented.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
I recommend that you approve the conference attendance as presented.
So moved. Motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
I recommend that you approve the policies as presented.
Second.
Any questions on the policies that are proposed tonight? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Discussion items.
And we'll start with the request to extend property tax exemptions. Mr. Nestor.
Yes. Over the last couple weeks, we received 2 requests from organizations who filed the necessary paperwork to have their properties deemed exempt from taxation moving forward. The exemption will take place for our purposes effective July 1st of 2015. Both of the organizations requested that we consider extending that exemption to the current fiscal year. Both own the property in the current fiscal year, but there is a process that you need to go through with the county Board of Assessments to qualify for an exempt property. Historically, we've honored the County Board of Assessments determination and granted the exemptions on the timeline that they awarded it. However, these two property owners have requested extension to the current year. That's not something I have the ability to offer. Only the 9 of you do. So wanted to open it up for any questions, concerns, and see if the board was willing to consider that.
For the Save Foundation, the letter that we received from them, apparently they're going to take a portion of this property and turn it into an arboretum. I was really encouraged by the fact that it said, in return for the abatement and future exemption, the foundation would like to open the property and its features at no cost to the school district for educational purposes. The land already has trails and several educational features, such as an outdoor classroom, that make it a tremendous resource for the district. Much more is planned as grant money is received. It seems to me it's right there in Upper Pottsgrove. Is that correct? It's in Upper Pottsgrove?
That is correct. It's right off of Gilbertsville Road.
That would be something, if they're going to open it to, especially our elementary schools, that'd be a quick and easy field trip for our kids, and even possibly for our higher grades to do some kind of work at the arboretums, horticultural studies, things like that. So to me, that seems like we would get a really good return on our investment for them.
I was thinking about this and thinking that this is the way that townships and school districts should interact with each other. In this case, our township, and as well as a foundation in the township, one of our townships, came to us. They're doing good things with the land, and they want us to waive some cost, and in return offering some benefit to the district so that the entire community benefits. And in my opinion, this is the way it should always be with all of our townships. When one entity comes to the other and asks to have fees waived, it should be a very cooperative process. And so I personally am very much in favor of extending that cooperation to our friends in Upper Pottsgrove.
Just looking at it says that it's a nonprofit entity and they applied for exemption with the county. Is there any estimate of how much in the future, once they get approved, what the loss is going to be? Well, not loss, but what their exemption would be?
This property was a farm property. It was under Act 319, which is a farmstead tax situation. So they have historically received a very low tax on the entire 17-acre property. Both of the properties, both the requests are tied together. The township purchased some open space. On that open space is a homestead, which is owned by the foundation. In total, the loss, because most of it was taxed at a very low rate by being a farm, is about $5,000 a year.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of this is owned by Upper Pottsgrove Township. So the taxes would have been paid by Upper Pottsgrove Township to the school district? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's basically...
Just so it's clear, Dee, I mean, maybe I misunderstood your question. This property was owned by someone else who paid the taxes. Upper bought it, and they would never pay taxes prospectively. And the request is, would we grant this request, and I'm parsing words with Dave a little bit, is probably not extended, but probably make it retroactive to this year.
Retroactive, right, correct.
What's the total dollar? Did you tell me that and I already forgot?
5,000.
5,000, right?
So basically, this is either way, our taxes or township taxes, it's coming from the same, basically the same population. It's coming from the community. Either it's coming through, it's coming, taken out of one pocket and put it in the other, is kind of how I see it. Is that correct, or is that?
It would be a cost of the municipality. Their primary source of revenue is municipal taxes, municipal property taxes, very similar to school districts.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request to waive property taxes as requested retroactively to, I guess, the beginning of this year. Did I state that correctly?
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you. At our last board meeting, the board authorized us to recommit the unused PESERS reserve fund for offsetting future retirement rate increases. In your packet, I provided a spreadsheet, actually two spreadsheets. On the back of the one spreadsheet is the prior plan. It says at the top. And then you can see the revised plan that was created on last week for your consideration. I think this allows us to further mitigate the costs over the next few years and try and limit the impact of the PESERS retirement rate increases as best as possible during the next few years as rates increase substantially. There'll be about a 4.5 percentage point increase next year and about the same amount the year thereafter. So it's like a 25% increase next year and about a 17% increase the year after that in year over year. So could have some big impacts on our budget. So I've prepared a plan for utilization of that reserve subject to your approval.
Dave, I have one question. In the highly unlikely event that our state actually deals with this problem in the next couple years, are we bound to continue to use this money for this purpose if it's no longer needed?
The process that we went through to get this reserve established was a board action to commit the funds. The board has the authorization and the responsibility, if they no longer need that, to uncommit the funds or to commit them for some other purpose. That's within your discretion as a school board.
Just so there may be different answers to reserve funds as we go forward, there are a couple what I call statutory, meaning under the school code, there are certain reserve funds that are created, and they talk about how you spend them, and once you create them, the money is segregated. But Dave is absolutely correct. This is not a statutory one prescribed. It's one that was prescribed by the board. So what you giveth, you can taketh away.
That's what I was inelegantly asking. Thank you.
Dave, once again, I'd just like to say thank you for your long-term vision on this. I think we would be in really deep trouble, and we would all be taking a huge hit as far as taxes were concerned if you didn't have a long-term vision on this. And so I appreciate you not only beginning this process long before it became a problem, but also continuing to stay on top of it and mitigating what would be a horrible situation. So thank you for that.
Any other questions? I guess we need a motion on this, or we've already
If I
committed?
I mean, are you recommitting in some way? You need authorization, or?
We recommitted we authorized the recommitment last month. This is just a utilization plan. So as long as the board is okay with it, we'll
You just needed a
we'll
blessing.
implement it. Yes.
It's blessed.
Thank you.
And Dave, could you also talk about the West Pottsgrove chiller project, or would you like to?
Actually, I think Mike would probably be
Okay.
more appropriate for that. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. At last month's Facilities and Operations Committee meeting, I brought to attention that we have a damaged compressor on the chiller at West Pottsgrove Elementary School. And we sent some information home for you to look over and explain why we feel that damage occurred. For those who didn't get a chance to read that, just quickly, we feel that we had a lightning strike at the building, which took out the compressor and the electrical contactor. During one of our preventative maintenance checks through the service provider, they found the electrical contactor damage, and we did those repairs. And when that didn't remedy the problem, further troubleshooting led to the compressor failure. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about the cost involved with this particular repair. And it's outside the capability of our general fund repair budget. So if we do have support of it, I would like to request that we fund it from our capital reserve. When we got the proposal on the recommendations from our service provider, they provided us two cost options. Bless you. Because the chiller is a two-stage chiller, circuit A was the damaged compressor. The repair quote for repairing that circuit was $29,800. They also gave us the option to have both chiller compressors serviced and rehabbed at the same time at a cost of $47,510. My recommendation to the committee and to the board was that we went with the Circuit A repair only because our preventative maintenance logs did not show any additional wear that leads us to believe that we were heading toward a compressor failure. We have vibration and oil analysis that are indicators to show the damage of the inside of the compressors. We were not seeing that on either compressor, but because of the electrical surge with the lightning strike, we ended up having compressor A failure. So I'm here tonight to see if you support that recommendation and if we could fund that to move forward with the repairs. Any questions?
One, we spent money to do a repair that didn't work, correct?
That is correct, but the electrical contactor, the contacts on that contactor were burnt up. That was the original troubleshooting diagnosis.
So the repair needed to be made anyway?
It needed to be made anyway.
That answers
yes.
my question. Thank you.
Mike, are you asking us to consider both options here, or are you proposing just the one for now?
I'm proposing only Circuit A
Compressor.
to have Circuit A compressor rebuilt. I wanted to present both options to see if there was further consideration. I do not believe that both compressors need to be rebuilt at this time.
In your opinion, then, the reason why is the lightning strike. Yes. You have kept records on the oil analysis and of the vibrations, and like you said, you saw nothing coming.
Correct.
So you're confident with the B that something else could happen, but not with the compressor itself. The compressor, at this point, checks out good.
That is correct.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
What prevents in the future, was it not grounded, or is there something that, if lightning were to strike twice?
It's a very strong possibility. This is an air-cooled chiller. It's on the roof at West.
Yeah.
It's just at a spot that could make it susceptible to this in the future.
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
I had to. Go ahead, you had a question?
The only advantage to doing the other compressor now is that by doing them both at the same time, we're getting some economies of scale and saving money. So the risk is, by not doing it now, if lightning does strike twice, we'll end up paying about $10,000 more if I did my math correctly. But I think that's worth the risk as long as you're satisfied that the B compressor is in decent shape.
It's in good shape.
How many more years do you think we'll get out of it?
I would say about 10 more years.
Then I think we should wait. Yeah.
And their estimate on the rebuild is to give that about a 20-year life cycle. Thank you.
Need a motion here for, I make a motion that we repair circuit A only.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. In our last discussion item, I wanted to bring Jim Kiefer back from KCBA to talk about the metal roof deck change order proposal that we had conversation about at the last meeting. And just to remind you, I sent some information out earlier today because we met as a team yesterday. Jim Hanna was there, Mike Katzenwehr, Dave Nestor, Michael Wagman, and myself to review where we were with this change order, and we were still ironing out the figures. Jim Hanna was working to try to get our costs reduced and make sure that it was accurate. And at this point, we feel very confident that we're getting, the service at the right price to make this correction. And I also asked Mr. Kiefer to be prepared to kind of review for you the difference between contingency funds and allowances and where we are to date with the project so that you could kind of remind yourself of where we are and what this piece would then add to this project. So go ahead, Mr. Kiefer.
Good evening, everyone. Before I start, I do want to apologize. 2 weeks ago, I was a little confrontational with the board. It really wasn't my intent. I am here to help you through this process in any way I can. The proposal request...
Before you continue, I just wanted to say thank you for that. We appreciate that. Thank you.
The proposal request that we presented last time has been developed to a point where we have a firm number. We talked to the general contractor several times. They gave us several different proposals that we rejected for various reasons. The price we have now we feel is a fair price at $26,307. Dewey Engineering has reviewed this as well, and they feel it's a fair price for the work. So what we're asking tonight is a motion to approve the change order. But before we get to that, we really wanted to put the costs in perspective because $26,000 is still a lot of money, and we want to put that in the scope of the entire project. Change orders are expected during construction, and that's why there's a contingency. The contingency for this project was $1.366 million. That's what the board has set aside in a contingency fund. To date, we've used $79,433, which is approximately 5.8%. With the change that we're talking about tonight, that's probably another 2%, or somewhere around 8% of the contingency has been used to date. Right now, the project, our last month's billing, we were at 16% of the contracts have been paid. There's a billing cycle coming through right now, so we're probably around 20% of the contracts have been paid out. So, in a relative, we're at 5.8%, and have expended 20% of the project. Separate from the contingency fund, there are allowances that are built into the base bid for each contract. That's money that you've already agreed is in the work. It's money that's set aside for particular items. We have unit prices established, and as things come up, that money is used to pay for those unit prices. To date, of the $584,000, no funds have been allocated. So there's still a significant amount of the contingency remaining, excuse me, and all of the allowances remaining. So at this point in the project, we're very comfortable. We're well within the budget for the project. Actually, our change order amounts have been very low to date, and we're comfortable with the position that the district's in. Any questions?
I have a question. So I was looking at the proposed change order from Stubner, is that right? And on here it had item 1, finish and install. And then on item 2, and they had crossed that out, but it said to be handled on a T&M basis as needed. So I wasn't sure what that meant because I don't speak architecturese.
The general contractor has oversight of the work. The majority of the work is done by a subcontractor. The steel fabricator will be providing and installing the deck. But the general contractor has work associated with that as well. They put a price in here for that work, $1,800. The review that we had with them today was, Jim Hanna we crossed that out and we said, look, we think that's excessive. Let's do it on a T&M basis. That's time and material. So they're going to keep track of how much time they spend and then bill us just for that. It will not be more than $1,800. Ideally, it's less than that. That's the negotiation that we worked out with Stubner.
And then there was, let me see. Oh, yeah, it said being pushed into winter conditions, weather-related issues due to lead time. There are no provisions for any temporary heat with this work. Is that something that they're worried about?
Of course, they're worried about it. One of the changes that we made was to pick a deck that was readily available. There were two major hurdles we were trying to address when we were revising the proposal. One was the cost, and second was the time. We didn't want a product that was going to take a lot of time to get here because it would push them later into the construction cycle. So we picked a deck that's readily available. They should be able to get it in a short amount of time. And if the board approval happens, they can order the material. Jim, you might want to comment too, but really don't anticipate that this should push that work into a very cold condition where these issues come up. That's again why we said, let's handle this as a time and material number, and we'll pay for it if we need to, but we don't think it's appropriate to pay for it now.
If I can elaborate on what Jim's talking about. Part of the work that the general contractor is responsible for is temporary facilities. Temporary facilities is protection. If there's holes in the roof, he needs to protect that so we don't get any snow in on finishes inside the building when we're finishing. We're working in an occupied building, he's responsible to cover that. If it needs to be heated for whatever reason while that roof's torn off, he's responsible for that. So he is reserving his right to say that if this was in there, I would have had that on it. Okay, if I'm doing it now, it's November, it's December, I may have to do this, and I feel I don't own it. Okay, so I'm saying, well, I don't see how you're going to have to do it anyway. But if you do, we'll look at it. Okay, I'm not going to cheat you out of that. If you own it, if it's not right, we'll look at it, we'll do it on this basis. But I'm not going to pay for it if we don't need it. That's the conversation I had.
Is that an example of that reserve that's built into the contract that you were just speaking about, separate from the contingency? Like, if they have to do that, then if they have to...
Probably not.
Okay.
The time and material would probably be a separate change order. We haven't been handling that type of expense as an allowance adjustment.
And if I'm hearing correctly, like you said, you went to look to see if you can get a readily available deck, which obviously you found. If this does roll into the winter, what I'm hearing is correctly is that's going to be up to you guys and the contractor about handling the issue of heating the building and heating the space so they can get the work done. Okay, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for all your work, and these numbers that you gave us put everything into perspective, and quite frankly, the number that you gave us is a lot lower than I thought it was going to be. So, thank you.
I had one more question about the financing. You had addressed, that we haven't used. You know, we've used a very small percentage of our contingency. I'm sure as we go on, this is a long process, we'll, you know, use more of that in our reserve. If we don't use all of that, is that something, this might be a question for Dave. As we get toward the end, I know we're funding in several different chunks. Is that something that we would, toward the end of the process, be able to maybe reduce the final funding? Is that what we would do? Would you have that? I was just wondering about the funding, what we do with the leftovers, basically.
What happens as a practical matter, because of the intricacies of financing, and I'll defer to Dave on that, but what's been my experience, what happens is the bond indenture is written such that the money can be used for other capital projects. And so what boards generally do is either enhance this project some or take the money, and you have an arbitrage issue, and now you're beyond my pay grade. But the bottom line is you have to spend that money, and I will urge you at that time to spend it within 3 years. But we can come up with a list and we'll have some time. Unless Dave thinks there's the call, I don't think as a practical matter you can pay the bond issue down.
Correct, but the bottom line is we borrowed roughly $15 million this year. We'll be scheduled to have another borrowing in early 2015 of about $10 million. And then we'll see where we are when 2016 comes around to determine whether we feel we need to borrow another $10 million or maybe we only need to borrow 8 or 7.5. We can adjust that a little bit. But as Mr. Davis said, you still don't know until you're really done whether you're going to find that one big change order that's going to make you run scrambling for that extra money.
You do have a luxury that I'd forgotten about. Most districts and most borrowings borrow it all at once, and you have the ability. And again, we don't want to take too many chances at the end, but you have the ability to juggle a little bit.
Right. But we will structure the borrowing so that if it's not needed for this project, that it can be used for anything else that the school district, from a capital standpoint, feels necessary.
I can't sit back and not talk about this issue, right? I just wanted to add to that. As Mr. Kiefer pointed out, those allowances are built into the bid and into the project cost. That's already part of what the cost each contractor is telling us they're entitled to. If those allowances, whatever percentage of those allowances are not used, we get a credit change order at the end of the project. That comes off that overall dollar amount that we've agreed to pay them. We get that credit change order, their bottom line is adjusted, and we don't pay that amount. So it's not like that money is theirs. If it's not used, it gets credited back to us and their bottom line is adjusted.
I think as I understood the question, Mike, is if we get lucky, or I don't know, lucky is the right word, if we're fortunate enough to have those credits at the end, what do we do with the money is the question, and that's what we'll have to deal with at the time.
Since you addressed the credits, is it, because I've never done a school building before, do you find that most of those come at the end of the process, or are there contractors that do a certain amount, drop off, and then we get that credit? And so is it kind of scheduled throughout, or is it usually at the very end that we find out what our credits are?
Typically for allowances, it will be at the end of the project when we're doing our closeout. But there are a couple credit change orders that we're currently working on with the general contractor. There's some modifications. We're working on the numbers. Just as Mr. Han has worked on reducing this number, we're working on increasing a credit change order that we feel is coming to us with some modifications to our existing auxiliary gym, which will be our future weight room and fitness center. We're working on a credit change order for that, which should be somewhat significant number. And we're also working on a credit change order to take the floor finishing process away from the general contractor and have our custodial staff perform that function to the standard that we like to see our floors kept in. So we are currently working on 2 credit change orders, and there could very well be others as the project moves along, as there will be additional change orders for expenditures as the project moves along. Really, it's all at the end, when everything's closed out, is really when we know what the bottom line numbers are.
Well, I'm enthused to hear that we're 20% complete and only have used 5% of the 1.3 million contingency. So, you know, hopefully we keep going at that rate, and we'll all be happy. But I want to thank you for your words at the beginning of your statement, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the change order.
Second. Motion is second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Mr. Kiefer. Moving on to, well, I need to announce there will be an executive session after the meeting tonight for personnel. And moving on, we'll go on to our committee reports.
I'd like to recommend that the board accepts the meeting minutes from the operations facility meeting on October 14 as provided in your packets.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Sure, just a report on tonight's policy committee meeting. We reviewed 2 policies. The first one being eligibility of athletes. This goes back about a year, where we had some thoughts and concerns about possibly raising the bar for the minimum eligibility level for student athletes as far as academic eligibility goes. What we talked about tonight is we do follow the PIAA regulations, which is what most of the districts in the county follow. There are some districts that have set a higher bar, but at this time, we think that keeping ourselves on a level playing field with most of the districts in the county is the best course of action. That was a recommendation of Mr. Dorenzo and supported by the administration, and we do agree at this time that we're not going to look at making any changes to that policy or that eligibility standard that we have set. The second policy was Policy 221, which is the dress and grooming code for the district. If you remember, Ms. Klaus in a previous meeting had reported some student survey results that prompted us to take a look at the dress policy, and basically the principal of the high school and along with Dr. Shirk have come up with a plan to review that policy over a period of time, involve students and administration and faculty to come up with a best plan, a modernized plan if we need to make changes. The goal being that with student body buy-in and faculty buy-in, it will be easier to implement, easier to enforce, and more standardized across the district. So it sounds like a great plan. It doesn't require a revision to the policy just yet, but I think this will probably go a long way to smooth that over and improve those survey results the next time around. So that concludes what we discussed tonight.
Can I just add one minor thing? And that is that as part of our discussion about the athletics standards, we also realized that it's even possible that the districts that do have a higher bar might not actually have a higher bar because of a different grading scale than we have. And since we're moving to a new grading scale, we discussed the idea of considering the grading scale changes in the context of this policy, and perhaps making changes, or perhaps not, based on the fact that we're basically going to be lowering the definition of a failing grade by August of next year. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. I was absent from the meeting tonight. My honey-do list is ever increasing, so forgive me, and thank you for the update. And as the parent of a junior girl. She's going to be excited to know that there's going to be a committee looking at straps on shirts and whether or not they're appropriate or not. So moving on, we're going to move on to new business. Does anyone have any new business?
I had a question about something that's in the packet. I don't know if at new business, if this is the time to bring up the question. Is that, okay. The eligible content review website. My question about that was, that they're asking for input from educators, parents, community members, and other interested parties about the content. My question was, is this, the content that they're asking questions about, is this part of the new PA core? That content, is that why they're asking for input? Because the standards have changed? I wasn't really sure why
I
they were
think
doing
the
this.
why is it's a political agenda behind it, but essentially I think it's to showcase the eligible content and make it appear as if they're asking the community to provide input even though it's already in place. We're going to send this out, this information that I received through a pen link. I wanted you to see it first, and then certainly we'll send it out to the parents and the community if they care to go and make comments. I'm not sure if it'll make a difference or not. But I think they wanted to allow that.
Any other new business?
Go ahead. We are scheduled to have our exit conference for a local audit next Tuesday at 3 o'clock, and I was asked to see if any board members would like to participate in that exit conference.
What exactly is involved in an exit conference?
Well, for those of us who play with numbers all day, it is very exciting. But it's a walkthrough of the audit and an opportunity for the board member to interact with the auditor to see if they have any questions or concerns related to the audit.
If I could add, they essentially do the same thing at the board meeting when they come. But if you have extra time and you'd like to also hear the actual audit conference, we'd love to have you.
Regretfully, I cannot.
Is that on November 4th?
November 4th at 3 o'clock.
Election day, okay.
I'll get back to you on that. I might be
Yeah.
able to work my schedule.
I'll get back to you maybe at 10. So I'll let you know I have to be home anyway.
I'm telling you, it's very exciting.
Oh, it sounds
I
great.
do that at work. I think that's exciting. I do have some exciting news from the athletic department. We want to extend a congratulations to the high school boys cross-country team on capturing today's PIAA District 1 cross-country championship at Lehigh. These guys have worked so hard. I'm so proud of them. I mean, they're all this tiny little group. They just accomplished so much.
Last Friday, right, Pat?
Yes, last Friday. This is Pottsgrove's third District 1 title in the past 4 years, which is such an accomplishment. It's huge, exactly. This weekend, they'll be traveling to Hershey to compete in the PIAA States Championships. So we would like to congratulate Coach Recton and Coach Eaton and the entire boys team. And from what I'm hearing, they have a really good chance on bringing home states again. So we'd like to congratulate them and wish them well. And I do know tonight, I forgot my phone at work, but we're having, the boys soccer team is at a district meet too. So hopefully they are winning or won, and Thursday they'll compete again. So we'll keep you posted, but congratulations to everyone.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Any other new business? The only other last comment I had was, I actually already brought it up, Tuesday's Election Day. Need people to get out and vote. It's not a local election, but it is a gubernatorial and also for state representative. Of course, we're not advocating for one side or the other. We're just pushing people to go out and vote. And also, to be conscious of issues that are facing the state, such as fair funding formulas and property taxes. A lot of the problems that we face as a board, and as much as our neighbors probably like to give us a hard time, and France isn't here tonight, but you know, a lot of these issues are above our head. You know, we're doing the best we can to keep what we have, provide the best education that we can for our students, but districts like Pottsgrove really need help on a state level. And we can't do that if we don't have the right people in Harrisburg representing our interests. So that is everything for tonight. With that, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Third. Have a good night, everybody.